Hi, this is Paul, Dev TV. I want to do a speed programming thing. I'm going to show you how to create some programmatic buttons, one without auto layout and then one with auto layout and some animations. And we're going to jump through it. I'm not going to, read off every line of code. I'm going to sort of talk about the concepts of what I'm going to be working on. And you can follow along. You can pause the video, do whatever you need to do to see how this works. But I want to try to show you how to make this interface. So I've got this button that can add a button programmatically. And then I have another button that can add a button on the bottom and actually do a slide animation. And this is using physics. So I'm going to show you how to get started with all of this. And we're going to use my starter project. So that's the final product. What we're going to be working on is the starter project, which just, I think I had the wrong one. So let's get the right one up. I just have a timer in here. So let me just start this up. Nothing's going to happen. I guess we just had to close the other one. And I had to change devices. I opened the beta and that caused some issues and gave me duplicate devices that I had to clean up. All right, so I've just got a timer running right now. The button doesn't do anything special. We're going to go ahead and add the logic. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a button programmatically, and I'm going to create a a method to do that. So let's do setup button. And then I'm just going to go ahead and make a new button. Got a blue button graphic here. Throw that right in. Use a bigger font, change the color. What else do I want to do? Let's add a target. Give it a size to start. Button graphics 80, so I can go with 80 for that. And then we're going to center it. All right, so in Swift, we have to convert this right now to a UIButton because it's an any type. And then we're going to go ahead and call this new method in our viewDidLoad and test it. All right, I've got a button, no title, it crashes, no method has been added. So let's go ahead and set the title. I knew I was missing something. It's working. Okay, so now let's work on another button. It's going to have auto layout. And then we'll work on animating after that. Good. I just basically copy and paste all of this code. So I just copied it. And we're doing a new button. So button 2. Just got to make sure I paste in all of those, and let's call this in our setup function. It's going to put a button right on top, and when I click it, you see it doesn't fade. That's because there's 2 stacked. Going to move this down. We're going to put this in the bottom with auto layout. Right on the edge, and then we'll do the other ones for the right side and then the bottom. Now let's do the bottom constraint. And this doesn't have an edge, so I believe we have to go -20 to move it up. And then we'll go ahead and add these to the view. We don't add it to the button, so we add the constraints as an array. And we don't see anything. So when I don't see anything, I want to make sure that the method is being called. It is being called. So we've got something wrong with our constraints or our setup. All right, so we're doing the left side equal to the view's leading margin. That's right. Then we're doing the right side, going to equal the view's right margin. And nothing. Oh, we do have something. All right. Easiest mistake in the world. We have to disable auto layout for this button, or disable auto resizing, auto layout constraints for this button. All right, so set translates to false. You don't do this, it doesn't work. Thankfully, there's a print statement. Otherwise, I would have been like, what? Okay, so now we got that. And now we're back in action. So it is -20 because we need to move it up in relation to the bottom margin. All right, so that is our auto layout button. Now what we want to do is we want to animate it. And so we have a button pressed. This one, we're going to have the animate button pressed. And we're going to call... This one doesn't really matter, but we're going to go ahead and add it as well, just so we have something. Okay, we got our two buttons working, and really it's the logic in here that we want to do in animation. So what we are going to do is play with some auto layout constraints. That means we need a local variable to store that. We'll just get rid of this local variable, replace it with another variable that's a little bit more descriptive, and then we can play around with that in our button pressed. I'm going to make two methods here to control the showing and the hiding. If I wanted to, I could add an animation property and make it so it doesn't animate or it does animate, but that adds a little bit more work, so we're just going to do this. And then we need to have a toggle that's going to be a Boolean. I'll call it button hidden. Bring it on, and then we'll bring it off. Just need to get it off screen, so we have to do a positive amount here and a bigger amount than the actual button height. And we're not toggling, so let's actually toggle. It's looking good. All right, so now I want to animate it. So we're going to use let's just start with a physics animation. Do a 1 second. No delay. Need to force the layout on the view. If we don't do this, we see no animation. Looks pretty good. Let's do the other one. Move those lines up. Super useful hotkey. And what is okay? Just have to do that. And then we have to make sure that we force the layout. Looks good. Okay, now I have already put on constraints for these views. If I just select everything, looks like this one's a little bit off. Just have to update the frame, I believe. Okay, so everything is set there. You can grab this bottom constraint for this bottom panel. And we're going to go to the assistant editor and then create a connection, and then we can modify this in code. And that is a wrong code file. Got to put this back on automatic. Sometimes it goes to old code files and I have to switch it. But that's just my problem because I have multiple copies of this project. All right, so let's drag this in. Let's bring it up top. These numbers are just something that you play around with to see what works, and it can be flipped based on the relationship. So I think 100 is going to be good for this one. Yeah, we need a little more. So I need another 8. So it's really the height of the button plus the margin plus 8 for a distance between those two buttons using the default values that Xcode uses. And looks pretty good. All right, so now let's set up the initial state in the setup function. We really want this off screen, so we want to say button hidden is true. And we also want the bottom button constraint. This needs to be off screen, so we're going to push it down. And then the panel should be in the right spot, but we'll just set that just in case. This should be at 20. We don't see it. We hit animate and they pop on. We can always play with that physics a little bit. That is looking pretty good. Now I just want to make this top button hide, and that's pretty simple to do. We just need to play with a Boolean. So when the top button is pressed, that is the, I connected it already. Add button is pressed. So in this one, we're just going to play off of the alpha. And flip it. And now to get it to be initially off screen, all we have to do is go back up to the top and set the default state for button 1. And I probably also want to do that for button 2. I want it to fade in. And that is wrong one. Okay, let's just redo that. Rebuild it, run it, add button, animate. Looks great. All right, so that's how you can animate not only a programmatic button, but that's also how you can animate a button that you add with an auto layout constraint and then affect some other UI in your application. All right, so that was just a quick run through of the code, and you can get all of this code in the online course. I've actually broken it down into multiple steps. So if you struggle to follow along, this was too quick, I've got a series of 6 videos that you can watch that walk you through each of the different steps that you need to do in order to set this up so that it works right. I just did a speed coding just to see how fast we could set this up so that you could see the whole process of animating a button with NSLayoutConstraints using auto layout and some physics animation. Hey, this is Paul Solt. Real quick, I want to interrupt you. You're watching this tutorial on YouTube, and I actually have a course with all the source code, all of the video files that you can actually download. So what you need to do is just jump on over, click the link, and you can jump into this course. It's free. It's going to show you how to animate using auto layout in your iPhone apps with Swift. So if you're enjoying this, go ahead, click the link, and jump into the course. It's free, and you can get started with building a nice animation using auto layout.